welcome yet again to another Hoops and Dreams QPR podcast. My name is Brian Fisher and this is episode 8. And last month we had a special guest who was Johansen, and he talked a lot about his fitness regime and also about that famous incident or notorious incident where he was pushed into the advertising hoarding and suffered a head injury. If you haven't actually watched that podcast, I strongly recommend you do. Anyway, this month I have the pleasure of talking to Luke Amos, all being well. So I'm really looking forward to that one and asking him a few questions as well on your behalf. Okay, this month, in our tradition of always doing something new and uncertain, we have two guests from as far away as you can get from Loftus Road. We have Ash and Jonathan. They are coming to you live from Australia. So thanks very much, guys, for this. I know it's been really difficult to organise, but I'm really grateful that you're here. I'll start off, Ash, if I may, by asking, I know you're a teacher. Who are you teaching?
Yes.
And how long have you been out in Australia? And what is the link with QPR?
Well, I've been here all my life. So my QPR fandom was handed down by a grandfather, but his was very limited. So I really had to find QPR myself. It was every Saturday night at about midnight, match of the day. We have ABC, which is just a live feed from the BBC. And it was just, I just fell in love. I mean, for me, my little avatar's Ray Wilkins, but when I was a kid, he had the collar up. I laughed. It wasn't Eric Cantona, it was Ray Wilkins. And,
yes,
he kind of had that swagger and
he was first.
Yeah. He was the reason why I just loved QPR. And then it was Andy Sinton, Trevor Sinclair. It was just they were just my team. And I remember getting the emblem was, I think, CSF. So a red away jersey, and it was like it was the best present I'd ever received. So
good stuff.
For me, it was just QPR. I've always been a QPR, a hoop, super hoop.
Great. And Jonathan, how about you?
Hi, I'm originally from St Neots, Cambridgeshire.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So I came over here. I backpacked for a while and met my future wife, and then emigrated in 2006. So been here ever since.
And struggling to watch the games, I'm sure.
Yeah. Managed to watch this morning's, and that's about it. Yeah. Unfortunately.
Yeah, I think really you guys, it's far more dedication than obviously somebody like me who occasionally does get along to the games and has the ability to obviously see them occasionally on Sky when things work out well, even though Sky's coverage isn't as good as it should be. It's. I think we've seen a lot of the team this season, to be honest, haven't we?
Yeah. It's also too. I mean, I can listen to sometimes on the radio, so I'll still get radio versions. I was saying to John, I did last night for some reason. I got onto the Blackburn game, but it was in Spanish. So, which I'm not Spanish, so it was certainly I've had some really bizarre ways of watching QPR play, but it's just and John would agree, for us, the forum is an incredible way of us kind of connecting with our favourite team. So just even hearing the banter and, the atmosphere of you guys watching the games for us that's our feed. That's why we're dedicated.
And I think it has the big plus with the Hoops and Dreams forum, of course, that you don't have to use a Spanish dictionary.
No.
Indeed.
Okay. Let's go on onto the format. Each episode that we aim to review the games that have been played recently and offer some predictions for the up and coming fixtures. Hopefully we'll have a worthwhile discussion along the way. This month there are 7 games to review. So for most of these we will not go into great detail, but rather discuss them as trends. And I've taken the decision not to ask for any exact predictions for the games coming up. I just want you to say win, lose or draw, or I don't know, I suppose you could say. As ever, I appreciate any positive feedback that we may get via the Hoops and Dreams forum or on our YouTube channel. All of it is welcome, and thanks very much. Okay, first match we're going to talk about is the FA Cup 4th round tie against Peterborough. We saw our expectations, as usual, dashed when it came to those cup competitions. We lost 2-0. And in all fairness, I doubt many fans would argue with that result. It was a fair result. In the 24th minute, there was a goalmouth melee with the ball pinging around, and Johansen seemed to switch off long enough to commit the shot on goal. Changes were made by Mark Warburton to address this. The team pressed forward, but as so often is the case when you're pressing forward, we were left exposed to an excellent solo run by Jones, and that ended with really a good goal. Can't argue with that. So, Jonathan, was this result a disaster, or even a warning, perhaps, of what was coming in other matches?
I don't know. I mean, is it a thing like, is it good to be out of the cup and try and concentrate on the games? But I mean, that hasn't really helped us at all, has it? But I don't know. We seem to lose to Posh quite a lot, don't we, when we play them?
Yeah, I think they're almost becoming a bogey team for us.
Yeah.
Lots of them. But,
yeah. But, I mean, I saw highlights. I didn't see much of the game, but we played quite well, though, didn't we?
I thought we did. But the truth of the matter is, I think we were outclassed. Do you agree, Ash?
Well, I mean, it's always frustrating when they get to a cup game, and I watch this game. Chair is to watch. You know, he's mazy. I mean, he reminds me a little bit of Tarabat, but Ward's goal was almost like they just watched him waltz into the area, and we'd had all this possession, and you knew what was coming. I mean, you know, whether you're in Australia or London, sitting at the pub or at the game, nobody was surprised when Ward scored, but it was just too easy.
And they all looked at each other afterwards, sort of looking for, not maybe putting the blame on each other, but he was there.
Yeah.
No.
But I think, unfortunately for me, and having a really actually a good opportunity to watch some more games, that's when the slide started. Because I think they felt we were really good, but we've come away 2-0, and it did not reflect the game for me, and it was just it was frustrating.
I can't argue with any of this. I think our results in cup competitions speak for themselves. We may find Peterborough a bogey team, but frankly, I think the cup competitions are a bogey for us as well. So, you know, we deserve to lose. I think we can't have many complaints about ending our cup competition early again. In theory, this exit meant that we could focus upon the championship, of course. And dare I say, hope for that automatic promotion slot. At that point, that's what people were saying. Our second game was at home to promotion-seeking side Middlesbrough. We were still without Dieng, Archer, or McCallum, but Ilias Chair was back in the side. You know, after his excursion to Africa, in the Africa Cup, where he sat on the bench for too long. Don't know what it is with them. So this was a Wednesday night match in cold, horrible conditions. The rain, I don't think, ever stopped, none of which seemed to suit our style of play and also, frankly, our players. I don't think they like the rain. I really genuinely don't think they don't like playing without an umbrella. Middlesbrough have steadily ground out results. No great surprise, you know, under the Neil Warnock type thing, that's what they would have done. So that nothing's changed really there. They often win by the single goal. However, this was an opponent that we should have been looking to beat, or at least draw against. You know, we were at home after all. As it turned out, this was a hugely entertaining match, but only for the neutrals. For the rest of us, it was a nail-biting match, and it ended up in a 2-2 draw. The R's were up within 28 minutes, courtesy of Wallace passing to Willock, who produced some fantastic dribbling. We just mentioned Cher, but we should equally mention Willock. He's been superb as well. And then there was a great pass to Mr. Chair, who converted brilliantly. However, as the half-time oranges loomed, the R's seemed to switch off, and the goal-mouth melee yet again allowed a deflected shot to go in, making it 1-1. After the break, our second goal followed right on 46 minutes. So we really came out of the traps, firing away. Joe Lumley made an awful pass out from the Borough goal. It was intercepted by a grateful Willock, who said thank you very much, and he quite calmly slotted it home. Sadly though, just 13 minutes later, Borough equalised when their cross was intercepted by a stretching Adoma, who instead of preventing their player from getting in contact, managed to knock it himself into the goal. It's every defender's nightmare. I'm sure he felt awful afterwards.
Yeah, he would have done.
All the changes were wrong as Chair was replaced by Hendrick. Johnson came on. Johnson was replaced by Gray. And later Wallace was replaced by Odubajo. But it really didn't make much of a difference, to be quite honest. Instead, Borough players continued to influence the referee and eventually resort to time wasting, which we're really not that very good at. And they left the pitch gloating. Our players certainly did not. So, Ash, did you manage to see the game live?
Yeah, I one of my very close friends is a Borough fan, so so I got the rare opportunity to watch two games in a row, and it was a cracking game. I mean, it was hilarious, not for Lumley, but when we kind of scored that second goal. But I felt just, and it stemmed from the Peterborough game as well. The midfield, I don't know, he's our captain, but Johansen just seems a shade off the pace. And, they looked, it was Wednesday night, as you said, Brian, it was wet and but they weren't up for it. And really, it was a fantastic result. And Borough at the end, and my mate was celebrating like they won the bloody FA Cup. It was a good point for them. But we really, at 2-1, we should have been better. And I think I had kind of that it was just too easy, that second Borough goal. And as you said, that the first goal was sloppy. It was reminiscent of Ward's goal. Just a goal mode scramble and four defenders just watching the play go by.
Yeah, frozen in time, I think. I mean, for me, there was little to see of the promotion potential there. Other than the actual goals from Willock and Chair. I mean, that they were quality. I think the strikers are really a concern at the moment, particularly Gray and Austin. And no combination of the strikers seems to gel, and no goals appear, whatever we do. Having said all this, it was a Rangers side that worked its socks off. It really did. And never gave up, which we've sort of come to expect this season, to be quite honest. That that we are very powerful in the last 10 minutes. We've got some sort of weird stat where I think we are the team in the last 10 minutes. So maybe we should try and ask the EFL if we can just play the last 10 minutes and forget the rest. Anyway, Field for this game was absolutely immense. He was everywhere. I really, really was impressed with him. Jonathan, this was Hendrick's first game for the R's, coming on as a sub. So what did you think of his performance?
I didn't see much of this one again, I'm afraid. But I don't, I mean, is he firing up? He doesn't seem to be doing a lot from what I've seen, like from this morning as well. But I thought
I think in this match, I think, to be honest, he was still finding his feet. I would say, and adapting to playing with the others. I think when you're in the midfield, there is this thing about interacting with the ball coming to you and the ball moving on. You literally have got to have eyes in the back of your head at times, you seem to think. I know it's difficult for a striker because a striker has to teach the people to pass it to his left side or his right side or whatever he likes to do. But I think midfield players, it is pretty difficult. And I think as we'll see, as these 7 games progress, I think we'll see that he also has progressed as well.
I hope so, yeah, because he's not a bad player.
No, I totally agree. Okay, so on to matches 3 and 4, and we'll start with the away fixture at Barnsley, with the weather again promising to be wild and wet. Barnsley have had a torrid season. I mean, there's no way of getting around this, and they languish at the bottom of the Championship. So surely this is one that we should dominate and win, I hear you say. Sadly not. As the team seemed to miss Chris Willock, who was injured in training, far more than I expected, to be honest. The creative passing of Johansen was also missing as well. Instead, we were reliant upon Hendrik and Gray, with the latter showing great energy, even if he was duplicating Sam Field rather than Johansen, and Gray showing, with Hendrik actually showing that he was duplicating Sam Field rather than Johansen. What we were missing there was the creative bit in the middle. For me, Hendrik was actually providing the defensive look. So there's no creativity there. And Gray, well, I just don't think he added anything of value, which is really sad. It was a poor performance all round. There's no getting away from that. And it was compounded by a well-taken Barnsley goal in the 73rd minute. So no record 5th away win on the trot for us, but rather a loss to a relegation side. This was Barnsley's first league win under their new manager, and that is since November 2020.
Of course.
It seemed to be one of those games where no amount of pressure or possession or goal attempts was going to make any difference whatsoever. As it was, there was precious little of the goal attempts, and this may well have had a lot to do with no Willock being available and shares starting to fade after about 30 minutes. We were playing 2 strikers, of course, as well, and this was only going to work if the wing-backs, Wallace and Odubajo, provided regular crosses to service them, or the strikers pounced upon loose balls or probing passes. None of this happened. And it should be noted that having 2 strikers on does mean that we have 1 less in midfield as a result. So the midfield was without Johansen and Willock's creativity, and effectively 1 player down. Despite his obvious enthusiasm, Hendrik offered none of the creativity we wanted, and for me, he's more akin to Sam Field or Don Ball in the way he plays. Although he was brought in as an attacking midfielder, so I'm really confused, I must admit. If it was me, I would have replaced Hendrik with Dazelle and Gray with Luke Amos. Both could have made the difference, I felt. In the past game, we started slowly, and we had far better second halves than the first, but the game never reached those lofty heights. One further comment from me: it was difficult to judge who crumbled to the floor the most, Odubajo or Quina, although the latter did get a great goal, in all fairness to him, although he went down like a sack of spuds at times. The Championship players must not keep looking for fouls, when they're getting hard but fair tackles. This has got to be, God, put a stop to this. It's just getting ridiculous, I think. Anyway, then we're away once more, this time down the road to the Den, to be entertained by our noisy neighbours, Millwall. They were in mid-table following a mixed bag of results, and also had 14 goals less than QPR, but the same number conceded. So given the stats and the annoyance at losing against lowly Barnsley, would Millwall be put to the sword? Would a draw be ground out, or another upset be on the cards? It turned out to be the latter, as the R's lost 2-0 to a side that took their few chances very well, whereas we looked like a combination of jaded and unable to overcome tactical marking. The Hoops and Dreams Forum had a lot to say about the team's performance, I think it is fair to say that there was also a fair amount of bewilderment as well. Jonathan, looking at both these matches, did you see this coming? These poor results, and what concerned you about their performance, or performances, I should say?
I mean, they were talking about Barnsley again as well.
Both, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, watch the highlights. Again, they just didn't close down for that Barnsley goal. They seem to be standing off, getting too much room, too much time, and again, that's just reoccurring, I think, which a bit of a worry. Millwall, well, I thought they were going to lose. I don't think they were going to get anything. And again, really good goals from what I saw. I mean, just didn't have any. They had no answer to the build-up. The build-up to the goals, they were just, I don't know, couldn't cope.
It wasn't even a mugging, really, was it? I mean, I think Mark Warburton said after the Millwall defeat that there were too few challenges made and won.
Okay.
Do you think that was significant?
I think so, yeah.
It just seemed to be, for me, an awful game. Ash, what could have been done differently from the R's perspective in regard to playing the Tykes and Millwall?
I think, and John and I were speaking about this earlier, is we've got a striker problem in that, well, we're not even really playing strikers at the moment. So if you fast forward, we've got a real issue with scoring goals. I mean, Chair and Willock are brilliant, but they play a different type of game. We can't always rely on them. I think we need, from my perspective, to play Amos more.
Yes.
I genuinely feel that he's got that drive, and I just felt those two games. I saw most of the Millwall, but the Barnsley one, we were lethargic. They're a team that, they're at the bottom, and they're, of course, admittedly, they're desperate. But there was just I've also found there was lots of space. There was 1 minute in the Barnsley game where the man ran through the middle of the field. It was like it was about a 100-meter run. And you could see these it was like he was speeding down the highway, and QPR players were just watching him. And that's when you throw stuff at the TV. Do
you think, given the problems that we had with Barnsley, do you think that for Millwall maybe we should have gone for a 4-4-2?
Yeah, I just think we need potentially, and also, I mean, we've had a little bit of it. We had success with Blackpool, but we almost do need to go back to something that, an old-fashioned striker. And if Austin's fit, and everybody knows I love Dykes, but just to return to a little bit of, I think if we get a few goals, and I think they might come against Cardiff, but we need to just have a little bit more structure. And the midfields, they're just being passed through. It's not easy to watch.
No, I couldn't agree with that more. For me, I always want to watch us play Millwall and win.
Yes,
that's the one. I mean, it's a bit like against Chelsea. But the first thing I've got to do is acknowledge that Millwall deserved to win. I mean, there's no getting away from it. They let us hold on to the ball until they felt threatened, and then they attacked the ball player. They had a similar number of shots recorded. They had 8 on target to our 2, and had only 2 corners to our 7. So the pressure was there, but we didn't make use of our opportunities. That's the truth. Some players like Adoma, Johansen, and Dickey look tired, to me anyway. The real problem here is not the loss, gutting as that is. It's the run of results we're on, and without any obvious solution. After the Millwall game, Mark Warburton also said that the players were not tired, rather that they were not with their A game. I
need to find it, don't I?
Yeah, I'm not so sure about that. So was this another case of too many off-colour players on the day, being geared up to counter, being geared up to play, and a side that was designed to stop us playing, and then winning? I mean, I just don't know. It's crazy anyway. Right.
Hard to watch.
it was, let's move on quickly. Matches 5 and 6, they started with a home game against Hull, a side that was sitting in excuse me, sitting in 20th position with their last 5 games showing, you know where we're going here, showing 1 win, 3 losses and 1 draw. So given Barnsley had a worse record but still beat us, what could we read into this these stats? In the end, this was a closely fought game, played again without Johansen or Wallace or Dyke starting. The last two being injured, and Willock was the left wing back. If Chair's equaliser was the highlight from a QPR fan's perspective, the lowlights were often the incorrect decisions made by a distant referee and an errant linesman, culminating in a wrongly disallowed goal for Adoma, as the ball was played backwards by a Barnsley player. Hull player, and an ignored penalty. Get it right, and an ignored penalty for Adoma again, after Matt Ingram hurled himself sideways, landed on top of him, and then was carted off on the stretcher, and it was taken as a foul on him. Match 6 was the home fixture with the men in Tangerine, Blackpool. In the equivalent away match in November, I think everyone was pretty much impressed by how they played. Blackpool did well, and they deserved their draw. Mark Warburton, I think, then surprised everyone, I think, by not picking any recognised strikers. And instead, he relied up front on Johansen, played a more forward role, with Chair and Willock. As long as our strikers continue the struggle with scoring, this is a formation I always wanted us to experiment with. Other sides, such as Man City, do this, and it works quite successfully for them. Could we quickly make this experiment work? Unlike recent games, we certainly started out livelier. Normally we start off very slow. The goal came through from a corner by Johansen from the right, where the ball hugged the posts and allowed Dunne a glancing header and me to get the right prediction for the goal scorer. We are 1-up at home, and it was only 30 minutes gone. However, it all went wrong when Sanderson and James grappled after a tough challenge, and Sanderson appeared to tap James's head with his. There was never going to be any other result except a red card for Sanderson. Stupid response. That left us with 10 men from the 39th minute. So really going to be on the back foot. To get the best from the new formation, Warburton needed the ball kept on the ground, and he needed it moved up the field. Losing Sanderson meant that we were so much harder to, it can be so much harder to achieve, because we ended up resorting to long balls as a result. The taller Blackpool defenders said thank you very much as they gathered them up from Chair and Willock. And so the changes had to be made. Willock was the one sacrificed up front. Hard, but he had to go, and excuse me, he brought on Don Ball, which made sense. And Johansen was replaced on 65 minutes by Luke Amos, another sensible one. And Chair was replaced by Thomas. All sensible ones because they were tiring. They were running themselves ragged up in front. The defending at this point was absolutely superb. A 10-man side was holding them back. They were doing really, really well. But it couldn't stop a long ball bouncing kindly, and a good shot making it 1-1 in the 81st minute. However, all was to change in the 88th minute as Thomas received a long ball and forged ahead to cross and find Amos and a defender in the goal mouth. Some declared the subsequent goal was an own goal. Some that it was Luke Amos's magic. I don't care really, as the 10 men were 2-1 up. A great result. So First of all, Ash, I think these two games show the almost Jekyll and Hyde nature of QPR. We can labour against the side in the relegation zone, and then against a side higher up in the Championship with a new formation and a player sent off, play as if our lives depended upon it. Do you feel the same?
Yeah, Blackpool was the game that I was lucky that I got to watch, but Blackpool weren't good, but I mean, we really took every opportunity. I mean, also too, QPR never are the team to score in the 88th minute. We always peter out, or we have a goal scored against us. This season, we do, and I think it was you that said we fight to the death, and I think that's, you've got to give Warburton credit. I'm not so sure yet about the striker situation, but I definitely feel that drive forward, the changes he made, Amos has got to play, and I think it was a goal. I'm not quite sure about the headbutt either, but it was a good game to finally get back. Happy.
So, Jonathan, were you surprised by the whole performance and the scramble draw there? And what about Blackpool with the new formation?
Well, it was a much better performance, wasn't it, against the Blackpool team? And again, like you say, the fight, it just seemed to be a totally different team again, but back onto that fighting spirit, not giving up. And again, like you say, that almost last minute goal that we've got so many times this season, it's just a nice bit of luck, I suppose, on our side for once. But
I think we just keep trying, don't we?
I think so, yeah.
And I think that applies. I think that applies in defence and in attack, to be quite honest with you. Nobody wants to give up. And that's what makes it so frustrating when you then see, as Ash said, a player just coming straight through the middle and everybody moving, almost moving away, it feels like. Nobody intercepts.
Why is it? I don't understand the mindset. Why are they like that one week and not the next? It's
being a QPR supporter.
Oh, yeah, exactly. But, come on, just bloody do it,
Can I suggest if you knew the answer to that, you'd be a PL manager and not a championship manager?
Obviously.
I mean, you've got to be fair. Mark Warburton must be thinking to himself, what am I doing here? I do everything I possibly can. And I guess some days it just doesn't work, does it? You can have a bad day at the office. If there's perhaps one or two players in a side who don't have a good game, you can replace them. But when you've got 3 or 4, I mean, it really does weaken a side. It really does. Yeah. So anyway, let's move on. I think we should to the last match, which was the one that was played on Saturday, the 27th-ish, I think, 26th. And that was against Blackburn, an away game against another promotion contender. 2 points of us coming into the game. We found them very difficult to beat at Kieran Prince Foundation Stadium when we last met. They're a very difficult breakdown, and especially their man marking of our creative players. That stifled it in terms of us, I think. So how would this pan out? Now, I've got to be honest here. I haven't had a chance to see this match yet. I was up in London, as we've already discussed privately, at the Tate Modern and then at a TED Talk. So I didn't get to see it. And on the train going back, I was just looking at the commentary and I thought, oh, gosh. But, again, he selected this new formation. I don't know what we're going to call it. Somebody's calling it the false 9. Whatever you want to call it, it's different. It probably kept Tony Mowbray guessing. But it was interesting. Although he had Chair again and Willock and Johansen up front, Mark Warburton admitted afterwards that he had made a mistake with the selection. He didn't say, of course, who he would have put in instead. But we'll have to guess that he maybe thought he should have gone for a different style of play. I gather from what was said that Blackburn dominated the first half, other than a Hendrick pass to allow Adoma to shoot straight at the goalie, sadly. and shared a miss, horrendous miss apparently. Blackburn went on to win, courtesy of a Reda Khadra shot in the 78th minute. And that was their first win. This is what's so galling. It's rather like Barnsley. Their first win in 9 hours of play. Dunne was awarded man of the match by West London Sport, apparently. And again, Mark Warburton lost another another option when Dieng was taken off injured. So that substitution was lost. And he's left with 2 substitutions to make to try and make things work. He went for Gray instead of Willock at 62 minutes, and then followed that up with McCallum for Adoma on 67 minutes. By all accounts, Adoma didn't look happy. He looked tired, or as Mark Warburton would say, he wasn't there with his A game. None added to the play. None of those substitutions made a halfpence of the difference in what was a really closely fought game, apparently. So, Ash, did you get to see the match live? I think you know.
I did. I did, but it was in Spanish for a period. So, not the. I mean, football's a universal language anyway. But it was, to me, it was a little bit dour. But I think we held our own. I think it probably was the right result, 1-0. We weren't out of it. It was there were moments we seemed to just, like a lot of these games that we've reviewed, we drifted in and out. There's patches where we're really good, but I genuinely feel Warburton has a real big concern with how we score goals. I mean, a new formation's all well and good, but I think if Austin is fit, and at this time of the year where we're really needing to jag that big goal, I think if Austin is fit, I'd have him up there, and with how good Chair and Willock are at getting those balls in. I think he's got a problem with Johansen. I think Amos has to be playing football. It just happens more in the midfield for me. That game again, and you mentioned Barnsley, but there was patches of Blackburn where we just let them just have so much possession, and we've been so good at keeping the ball. So for me, not fantastic.
Talking about that, I've got to mention the fact that in a lot of the games that we were seeing in this 7-match run, we're seeing a lot of passing from left to right, right to left, at the back, never really getting anywhere. The opportunities to move it forward were really just to pass it in a triangle. That was all they were doing. What we need to do, I would have thought, is steadily move up the pitch with the ball. Okay, it's going to make a compressed midfield, but that's where we've got the good players. Our players are very good for one touches and moving quickly between their own triangles up front. Once we start trying to do balls in the air, we just don't have the side for it. The only one who can do anything with a high ball is Dykes. It's sad anyway. Jonathan, did you get to view the game at all?
Yeah, I actually got to watch this one. Yeah, I didn't stay up for it, but I taped it and watched it when I got up this morning. I'm sort of glad I didn't get up for it when it was on. Seemed a bit lackluster to me, but I think it was the first 10 minutes. I don't think we even got out of our own half.
We played that same formation as Wednesday. Do you think that that's got something to do with it? The fact that we were so tired?
Possibly, yeah.
I think I'd be surprised. Even if professional footballers or athletes, they are athletes, could probably do 2 performances a week like that and get them both 100%. I just can't see it.
Not if they're giving everything, I suppose. It's just not going to happen. But I mean, I thought Johansen looked pretty off. He was making quite a few, not getting his passes right, and I don't know, just looked, something was wrong anyway. But Blackburn, especially those first 10 minutes, they were very good attacking. And the young guy up front, was it the number 7, Tardy or something like that? I don't know, but he looked pretty good.
He was good.
He was causing a lot of problems.
I was expecting Gallagher to be the one giving the problems, but it wasn't. So Jonathan, do you think that we've now slipped down to 5th? Do you think this is the slippery pole we're going down, or do you think we shouldn't be that concerned?
Don't know. I mean, are we doing a West Brom, because they were up there and now they're down again? Like I said, we've got to sort out the forwards, got to sort out the goal scoring.
Yeah, I agree.
So is Dykes and Austin injured?
Yes.
Yeah, because neither on the bench. I wasn't quite sure. Okay.
No, I mean, in all fairness, Warburton's options were extremely limited. And let's be fair to him, I'm pretty sure he wouldn't have tried this new formation unless he had to.
Yeah.
He obviously felt it was the best solution, and I still think, given time, it could be made to play, and work. Man City started this off, and other teams have done it as well, and they've struggled at the beginning. They've struggled to get it right and to understand how they interact in this sort of formation. Anyway, we'll see. Let's see what he does next week.
We might have to get better at it.
We'll forget the cup game. We won't talk about that anymore. But from those 6 league games, we've won 1 game, we've lost 3, sadly, and drawn 2. So our position has gone from 3rd down to 5th. The total points gathered in, therefore, was a lowly 5, if I've read this right. Yes, I have. We've scored 5 goals and conceded 8. So it's a -3 goal difference. So for this period, not that good. And when you extrapolate this out, as if we were going to at the end of the season, at this point now, we'd be aiming at 76 points, which is off. There's no way that's automatic promotion. No way. So there is cause for concern, but I don't think it's major at this stage. That's my feeling. Ash, do you think the same?
Yeah, I think I don't want to go ahead of the program, but I think Cardiff will reap some reward. I think we haven't been fantastic, but we're still in table wise in a good position. I do think that Dykes and Austin are, from what you read, they're a few games off. I think if we persevere, I still think I'm a QPR fan, so I'm going to think the best. But I definitely still think that we're okay. I don't think, maybe the next podcast there might be some panic, but I think we'll be okay just for now.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement on this. We've seen other sides. West Bromwich Albion was mentioned before. You look at Bournemouth. Bournemouth equally went through a bad patch, and Huddersfield. So let's just hope we've got over it, and we're now working forward again. It was always going to be a bit of a risk, I think, the way that things were set up after the January window closed. But we'll see. Okay. So now we're going to go on to the predictions. This is going to be fun. So we'll start with our home game against Cardiff on Saturday, the 5th of March. Cardiff are hovering at the moment in mid-table, and their stats indicate that they are at around about the correct level. We have the home advantage, and so I'll start this off by saying I'm going for a win. Ash, your thoughts and predictions on this against Cardiff?
Yeah, I think we're going to come good. I think Cardiff will be there for the taking, and I think Chair's going to score a lot. But yeah, big win for me. Big win.
Big win.
It is. If you're watching this, your expectation level has gone up. Okay, Jonathan, what would you?
I'll go a narrow win for us. I think.
Okay.
Still be yeah.
Listen, this season I've been happy to take narrow wins.
Well, yeah, definitely.
And then a week later, we travel on the Saturday, the 13th of March, to Luton. So not too far away. Luton are sitting just outside the playoffs at the moment. They've had a good season. And their stats, again, indicate that their position is justified. For some reason, these fixtures are regarded by them, at least, as a local derby. And they always want to see us soundly beaten. Personally, I can't work up any enthusiasm for Luton. Haven't seen them play. I'm just so glad I watch a team that plays football. It's an away game against an informed side, So I've gone for a draw. Jonathan, what about your thoughts?
Yeah, I reckon a draw. Hopefully a draw. I
Okay.
can't see us winning. I think they're on. They've got the best form at the moment, and then the last few games. So
I think they might well be.
they'll be
Ash?
tired
Yeah,
up.
I like the draw. I'm worried, but the draw, I think we defend well, we'll get a good draw.
That's what I like to hear. Okay. Then on to the midweek games. Back to those midweek games. So we're starting to put the squeeze back on the players, and the recovery time. Basically, all they ever get a chance to do between the matches in this case is recovery. That's all they ever do, and a bit of tactical stuff. So the midweek game is against Nottingham Forest. It's on Wednesday, the 16th of March. Forest were 2 places below Luton when I last checked, and their goals scored, conceded, indicates that, again, they were well placed. They're a side that likes to play possession-based football too, although they're obviously more dangerous, I think, than we are on the break. We much prefer to get the goalie to give it to us. However, I feel that this is an opponent that we can beat because of the style they play and how we play. I think we can beat them. So I've gone for a win on this one. Ash, do you see Forest as a side we should be able to beat despite their large and expensive squad?
Definitely, but I think it's going to be a draw. I just think we're probably a midweek game. We'll be tired, and I still think by then we'll be still grappling with different formations. So I would still be really happy with another draw.
Okay, and Jonathan?
Yeah, probably a 0-0, I reckon. No goals. We'll go for that.
Okay, that's still a draw in my book. Okay.
Yep.
Oh well, can't have everything, I suppose.
Yeah.
Our last match on which to offer a prediction is QPR against Peterborough, and that's on Saturday, the 19th of March. I think that might be before the international break. Peterborough sit firmly in the relegation places with the worst of problems, conceding too many goals and not scoring enough. Logic says that we should easily win, but Barnsley proved that league positions and form very much don't matter. I believe the Posh will again resort to stifling our play out from the back and man marking our creative players. Nevertheless, I believe that we will win this time. We will triumph. I don't know why I've got this optimism. I'm sure that next month people will be laughing at this. Ash, a win then against the Posh?
Yep, definitely. I think we've got a bit of revenge. You know, we weren't that bad against them in the, you know, we lost 2-0 in the cup, of course, to break that up again. But we certainly, we'll get them this time. I think and again, sporting cliches, we've got a lot more to play for.
Yes.
Of course they do. They don't want to be relegated, but we'll get them. We'll get them.
Jonathan, what do you reckon?
Yeah, 3 or 4-0, I reckon.
Whoa!
For revenge. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gosh, this sounds like Minxie Martin talking. Right, okay. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, we'll see. Let's see how we do. I will look at this next month and I will mention it as to how we did. Luckily, you've gone mostly with what I've gone with. So we've had a mixed bag of results and performances over these last 7 games. A tricky question to ask you guys, but well, can we have a look at player of the match, player of the month, or in our case, player of the 7 games? Ash, any ideas on this?
Yes, been so good. I mean, I know I said briefly about Tarabat, but you know, when Amos has come on, I'm always terrible with these kinds of things because I love about 5 or 6 players. But Chair just typifies that old-fashioned winger who just zips in and out, always has the energy, wants to, you know, when he scored the other day, he just was like, you know, it was the World Cup, and he's come back, you know, from as you said, his little trip, and I think we always mention on the forum, like he bleeds QPR. He's so passionate, and I think for me, just even when we've had massive problems in our midfield, he's always willing to get in there and just fight for the ball, and that's what typifies for me why I support QPR. So yeah, he wins it for me. That's
a good enough reason, I think. Jonathan, how about you?
I'm not sure. I think Dunne's done pretty well, isn't he, over the last few games? Scoring.
And I think he's been man of the match for a couple.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, he did. He played quite well this morning. I thought he was tracking back and tracking out in position and helping others out. So yeah, good for him.
I think that's a good shout as well, to be quite honest with you. I know on the Hoops and Dreams forum, certainly when they've been voting, Dunne's been up there at the top, along with Willock. Obviously, we know why Willock's there. The creativity is coming from him, and you know, you need that. And it's very visual, and everybody loves a striker anyway, or whatever, a forward player. I suppose we could equally turn around and say Marshall for the time that he was in there, or Dieng, but for some great saves. Anyway, I mean, I've sort of written down here that Willock continued to have these bursts of magic, which is absolutely true. And of course, we should mention Albert Adoma at right wing back. It's not his normal position, but it says a lot when he is preferred over anybody else. Who it's their job, but he's taken it over, and he's really, really good job. And as Ash mentioned, Chair has returned to score, which we love. However, results have been very mixed, so perhaps we should be looking harder at the defenders for our players of the month, or player of the month. Marshall produced some great performances, as I said. Sam Field was unbelievable at times, really has been. And in some cases, he seemed to be everywhere and tackling everyone and winning the ball. You know, you'd look up, and the other player that was there from QPR as two went in was always Sam Field. And Dunne has just not controlled the back line superbly. He's also scored a goal. I mean, we shouldn't forget that. But if pushed, I probably would go for Sam Field for my player of the month. So we've all gone for somebody different, which is really rather nice. That's good. That's good. Okay. So another question for you. Bit more tricky, this one. The January transfer window snapped shut, and it yielded no striker coming in. And we now hear through the media that Mark Warburton actually turned down the suggestion from Salez and Lee Hughes of having a striker come in. And he said he would, no, I want to focus upon a left wing back, a centre back, another centre back, and an attacking midfielder. So in came Sanderson to satisfy the centre back position, and Hendricks came in as the attacking midfielder, but we didn't manage to get a left wing back. I mean, obviously he's thinking ahead to next season, because Wallace, I can't see playing another season at the top level and starting all the games. He may well be there, but I can't see him starting all the games. So even if a striker had been on the shopping list, we have to be realistic about this and say there's probably no guarantee that we would have got them, because we would have probably been outbid by one of the other clubs that's willing to smash the dosh, and maybe it wouldn't have been the right time to get one. There wouldn't have been one available of a quality that we need for the going forward. And then the other thing that I suspect is the real reason why Mark Warburton said no. Who are you getting the striker for? Are you getting the striker for the Championship or for the Premier League? You know, there's still the outside chance that we could be going to the Premier League. Would you want to get a really good Championship striker who perhaps can't do it in the Premier League, or vice versa? A Premier League quality player on a lot of money who then plays next year in the Championship. You know? So, Jonathan, do you think that Mark Warburton made the right choices?
Well, I mean, going what you've just said, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, you'd hope that your current strikers are fit and raring to go as well, though, wouldn't you? It's a bit of a dodgy situation we're in at the moment.
We are.
Don't know. It's a strange one. Not quite sure.
No, genuinely, it is a very odd one. I personally don't think the January window is ever a good time really to buy a striker. It might be for a loan, but then I'd have to question why the player hadn't gone out earlier, you know.
Yeah.
So, and Ash, what do you think?
Well, I agree, but if he takes that philosophy, then he has to play great for me a little bit more. I mean, having him on in these spells and, give him 2 games. He's, he is tried and tested in the Premier League. We obviously, we've got him on loan for something, but he's almost, I mean, I love every QPR coach. But I think for me, Amos and Gray, just give him a full game, a second game, and go from there. If you're not going to buy a striker, then you've got to have faith in the ones you've got.
Yeah.
The one advantage of having Gray play is that it occupies the centre backs. It keeps them busy. They can't push forward.
Yeah.
If he sits on their shoulder, they're always going to be nervous. But then, because as I said before, that means you're one midfield player less. So they have to work that much harder to achieve the ball. And really, maybe this is where Johansen isn't perhaps playing as well as he should at the moment. Maybe he's got an injury. Maybe he is struggling for other reasons we don't know. But I don't see the form that was there during the pre-season and at the beginning. Sorry, at the end of last season. So I would love to see him back to that because I think he's a great player. I really love him. But maybe Amos is the answer. Put Amos up there, and at the back put Hendrik, alongside Field. I don't know. Shows you how little I know. So both of you, can we cope with the current strike force?
I think when they're fit, I think Dykes will come back. I mean, Dykes he's been scoring goals. I know he's not a Tomcats favourite, but he can score a goal. Austin at this end of the season, I think, Gray is a Premier League striker. I think with Chair and Wilcock roaming down the sides, we've got goals in us. It's been a rather disappointing month. I think we've got it there. We just got to gel.
Same?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, should we? I know the other 2 are injured, but should we be playing Gray a bit more to get them on their toes a bit more? Competition and all that kind of thing. I don't know if that would boost them or make them think a bit more. I don't know.
Yeah, you hear all these stories about sort of he didn't play a recognised striker. The strikers must have been upset over this and whatever. But at the end of the day, he's the manager. He is looking for performances. He's looking for wins. It's his job on the line. Yeah. Whatever happens, they'll carry on to the end of the season. Whatever else happens. So I've got a feel for Mark Warburton here. I think he's trying to work within his means. He's trying to work within the capabilities of the players he's got. I know he said that I like to work with a smaller squad. It's better for me and it's better for them. I think I now see how he's thinking, and that's fair enough. Let's just hope when you guys come back on again, we've just gone through a 7-match winning spree. That's all I need.
Brains trust.
Okay, well, that just about wraps up this episode of Hoops and Dreams QPR podcast. Other than for me to say, as always, a huge thank you to my guests, Jonathan and Ash. And also to my editor, David Barton, and the most excellent Hoops and Dreams Forum for hosting us. My name is Brian Fisher, and this has been a Hoops and Dreams QPR podcast. Come on, you R's!
We know who we are. You know who we are. We are QPR.